Hello. So we've come to the crux of the matter. How do you make money as a Christian creative? I'm going to be talking about a number of prosperity pathways and economic models. And depending on what kind of Christian creative you are, you will find many lessons that are applicable to you, many pathways that are applicable to you. So let's go. Now, we'll start by talking about the different creative typologies. There are basically four types, and it's important to know what kind of creative gift you have and what pathway best suits that gift. Now, of course, different lessons, different applications apply, across board, but I will try as much as possible to focus on what prosperity pathway best suits each creative typology. And in this lesson, I'm going to be using music as an example of a creative gift, even though there are many Christian creatives in different professions, graphic design. Some people write, some people paint. There are different types of creativity, but just so that we can all understand the lessons, I will just, refer to one particular type of creativity more than others, so that we're all on the same page. Now, let's begin. Now, for the worshiper, your main role is to call men to worship. So you'll find that there are some people who believe they've been called by God to deploy their creative gifts primarily within a church setting. So they're not mainstream. They really don't speak about things that are non-spiritual or non-religious. So they feel that their calling is to focus on worship, and the spotlight is not on them but on God. So ideally, the less people focus on them and the more they turn people to God, the more effective they are in that calling. So that's what defines them. Now, there are restricted pathways here because, like we mentioned in previous lessons, we no longer operate a Levite model. So you can no longer sit in church and expect that all your needs will be taken care of unless you are a staff of the church. So if you're a staff of the church, then you earn a salary, and that now becomes a financially productive activity. So for some worshippers, particularly those in the music ministry, praise and worship leaders, band members, choir directors who earn an income from the church, you must choose carefully. So sometimes you may select a church based on the resources that are available. Some churches take music more seriously than others. So some churches have equipment, they have resources, they have platforms, they have exposure that will help you to fulfill your mission or to fulfill your ministry as a worshiper. So before you take that decision to become a full-time staff of a church, you need to check them out and find out if they have the platform and the resources to enable your giftings, to enable your creativity, and also to pay you appropriately for the time that you're going to be spending. Remember what I said based on the parable of the talents in the previous lessons. God will hold you responsible for the value that you create based on the time that you spend deploying your giftings or your talent. You need to account for your time. So if you're going to be a full-time staff of a church, what value are you generating from that time? You need to be able to quantify it and justify it. So please choose carefully if you do decide to become a staff of the church. It may mean that the church provides you room to grow and to thrive in lieu of immediate financial benefits, but do your pros and cons and decide whether it's a good idea to become a full-time staff of any particular church. Now, there are some constraints. People, of course, expect Christian service to be free. So a lot of times it's very difficult to be paid commensurate to your effort and commensurate to your time. A lot of the time people assume if you're doing something in ministry and you're doing something to bring glory and bring attention to God, that it should be free. But that's not true. Remember, according to the parable of the talents, you must value your time, you must value the gifts and abilities that God has given you and you must be productive because you're going to give an account at the end of the day. We also don't have stringent copyright laws to sufficiently protect original creators. So a lot of times when you create original music in church, you become more popular the more people appropriate it. So that can also work in your favor in the sense that you can initially give your work away for free to attain mass recognition, but do it on your own terms. So I've put a link here. One of the things you will find as a music minister is if you consistently create lyric videos promoting your music, that a lot of the times the music becomes mainstream. So if you have a really good song, you have a really good praise and worship track that can become popular, you promote it yourself and let a lot of churches begin to use it. So provide the lyric video, let people know, be able to sing along in church or in the car or at home. Let it be something that you're deliberately pushing so that it can be appropriated. So yes, you may not be getting paid in terms of sales, but the more people view the video on YouTube, the more people stream the video, you can also make additional income from streaming and from YouTube views. And I'm going to teach you how to distribute your music on some of those platforms. So if right now your goal is to become for your music to travel far, or for your creative work to travel far, then you need to create different versions that can be given away and that people can use. So a lyric video for music is usually a very good idea. There's a link here if you want to learn some of the top tools for creating your lyric videos yourself. And you can also go to fiverr.com and pay a little bit if you want someone to do it for you, maybe create a template or a format for you that you can then continually use, something that fits your brand. So you can get someone on fiverr.com to create a template with your brand, your colors, the kind of fonts that you want, and then using that template you can then subsequently create other music lyric videos yourself. So that's something you can think about doing. Honorarium for a lot of music ministers, for a lot of creative worshippers, is also another major source of income. So sometimes you may be invited to a church program and given an honorarium. If you happen to be a member of a church with many branches, including international ones, you already have a captive audience. If you're invited to minister in those churches or in those branches, you will be given an honorarium. So that might also influence which church you decide to work with full time. Now, there's a thin line between being paid and being appreciated when it comes to honorarium. So if you're depending on honorarium, it's not a consistent source of income, because a lot of times churches don't want to be seen to be paying musicians. So they try to call it an appreciation or an honorarium, which means you can't plan for it. A lot of times you don't even know how much you're going to be given. Word just spreads once you become known, once you become popular, then of course there's a certain expectation in terms of what the value of your honorarium should be. But that's dependent to a large extent on your music having traveled far, and people knowing your music and wanting you to then minister at different church events or different church fora. So if you've done your work in terms of being inspired by the Holy Spirit and creating music that calls men to worship, and that a lot of churches have adopted, and they become very popular songs, very popular content, and at that point your honorarium level goes up. So it's not a defined economic model, because sometimes people may not be able to even pay your full value. So a lot of times you may go to minister in a church, and because it's not a fee, it's something the church willingly just gives to appreciate you. A lot of times you may be underappreciated in terms of the financial value. So it's not a predictable source of income. It's not something you can plan with or you can budget with. So if that's what you're going to be living on, I'm not sure that that's sustainable. Then for sales, Again, depending on how creative your song is, depending on how much it moves people to worship, how much it catches on, how viral it is, you can actually begin to make sales from streaming. But a lot of times people, just download your song for free. They may not, have a paid subscription on YouTube Music or Deezer or Apple Music or Spotify. Sometimes they may just go to a blog, to download your music. So this stream of income is limited. However, I would still advise that you put your music on those streaming services, do your lyric video, make sure you monetize your YouTube. So remember, I said in the previous lessons, you need a tech person on your team. Instead, or else rather, you're going to have to do it yourself. You're going to have to Google how to monetize your YouTube. You're going to have to Google how to distribute your music on streaming platforms. But I've put a link at the bottom for you with musicgateway.com, which has a list of the best music distribution services. So you no longer need to individually put your music on Deezer or Spotify or YouTube Music. There are services that once you send it to them, they will distribute it across the different platforms and ensure that you get paid. So that's one of the things to do. So if you're going to be putting your music out there, you're going to be putting your content out there, then you need to be on the different platforms where you can distribute your content. If you have high name recognition, of course, your international audiences would have paid for YouTube Music. They would have paid for all those streaming services. So that's usually where they will get your content instead of downloading it for free on a blog. And then there's also the emerging world of non-fungible tokens, where you can digitize your work and sell it on cryptocurrency platforms and decentralized finance platforms. I've put a link, academy.binance.com. If you go to that page and search for the word NFT, you'll find a list of articles and videos that give you an introduction to what an NFT is, how to create an NFT, and how to list an NFT and earn. So this is very good for graphic designers. If you're a graphic designer, it's a way to distribute your content, your creative content directly to the world and earn your money without any intermediaries. And Binance also allows you to list your NFTs on their platform. There are other platforms as well that allow you to do that. So that's an alternative way to get paid for your content if you're not a musician and you can't stream your service. You can create a digital version of your product or your creative work and distribute that directly via decentralized finance platforms and earn cryptocurrency for your effort. So please read those articles, academy.binance.com. Just search for NFT when you get to that page and you'll see a lot of resources on that. If you come from a large church, for people who still buy CDs, that's largely being phased out, but there's some churches that still sell CDs. If you come from a large church with many branches and your pastor endorses your work, then the members will patronize you. So again, like I said, if you choose to work in church full time, you may need to choose the church based on which church God has particularly sent you to, that will provide the platform for the work that God has called you to do. So that's also one option. Also, if you come from a large church, a lot of times you get invited to the branches, particularly the international branches, and from there you'll be given an honorarium anytime you minister in those churches. So choose a church based on the objectives of the ministry that God has given to you. Now, for licensing, because creative content is global, you can create content in Africa and that content can be licensed internationally. So this is one of the reasons why you need to build your brand, put your work out there. You should have a website. Again, I can't underemphasize the importance of having a tech person on your team, and talk to professionals. Sometimes you'll be amazed the kind of goodwill that you have, that if you talk to someone who is into branding and you tell them, please, can you create a logo for me? Can you direct me to where I can get a website developed at a very decent cost? Help me set up my social media pages. Ensure that you you work on your brand, because when you put your brand out there on digital platforms, it can be accessed from anywhere in the world. You're not limited to your location. So, for instance, a good Nigerian songwriter may collaborate with foreign artists in countries that pay licensing fees and royalties. We've seen that with Nathaniel Bassey and Chandler Moore. So there are opportunities, Chandler Moore rather. There are opportunities for you to collaborate once you build a brand in your home country, and your brand is global because of digital platforms. You will have the chance to collaborate. People will actually come looking for you and not the other way around. And there's a course that I recommend for Christian creatives. Musicbusinessafrica.org runs a course that takes you through the entire process, from distribution to licensing to sales, to legal. What are the legal considerations? How do you collect your royalties? What are the collection societies around the world? So if you're particular about monetizing your creative talent, then I readily recommend musicbusinessafrica.org. They have an online course that would hold your hand and take you through the nitty-gritty of the process. Now, if you're a healer deliverer, who are these guys? These are the people who create content that encourages, amuses, and uplifts. So they're the guys that make us laugh. They're the guys that when we're sad, they make us happy, they encourage us, they inspire us. So if you have this kind of gift, you have a gift of joy, a lot of people will want your content. So you'll find that on Instagram and on TikTok, content from comedians, content from dancers, that's the content that sells the most, because people want to be entertained, they want to be happy, they want to have joy. So if that is you, then you have a healer, deliverer, creative gift. And of course, a merry heart doeth good like medicine. So what are the prosperity pathways? Again, this is the premise upon which Nigerian Jollof music is built. Any type of content that eases people's sorrows and that just makes them forget their troubles, that's a healer, deliverer, creative gift, and it's relevant outside the church and appeals to a wide demographic. So if you do that kind of content, what happens is that you can make money in the church and outside the church, because your work has crossover appeal. So you can earn performance fees because you will be invited to perform, to minister in church and to perform outside of church. So if you have this gift, you're on to something. You're not limited to churches. Your content is market relevant. While worship is unto God, soulish content appeals to human beings. So there are opportunities for personal branding, for merchandising, for online distribution of your content. So this is the kind of content that plays well on social media. Depending on what kind of content it is, your content can become a soundtrack for, TikTok videos. You can start a meme. You can start a trend, simply because people will readily jump on your content because it gives them joy and it's entertaining. So if this is your gift, begin to think of how can you distribute this via social media, but how can you then make money via merchandising and personal branding opportunities? Because building the social media following is not the money. The money is in brands advertising on those social media platforms. The money is in brands hiring you for endorsements. The money is in your own merchandise that you sell through those platforms. So building the following is just the audience, is what brings organizations to you, what brings customers to you if you decide to merchandise. And then, like I said, endorsements, you can do social media promotions for brands if you have a huge following and if you have entertaining content. So you can perform, you can build a social media following that allows you to then do social media promotions for brands. You can also sell your own merchandising as well. So if you create a good brand at the beginning, you can put that brand on merchandises for people on merchandising for people who follow you, people who like you, people who want to support you. So that's also another opportunity. Now for poets and philosophers, now if you're the kind of person you're deep, these are the alter musicians, the alternative creators, people who are able to compose an entire song about a tree. Your audience is non-populist, but you can build a core following. So think Asha, think Bob Dylan, think Mali Music, even think Banksy, the anonymous graphic designer and creator. These are people who are non-populist, but they have a core, almost a cult following. Their fans will follow them anywhere. So if this is your genre, focus on production quality, because the kind of work you do is not populist. It's not flash in the pan. It's not what you would call chewing gum content. This is content that needs to be highly qualitative in terms of production value, and you're creating with longevity in mind. It's the kind of content that even when you're 80, people are still going to keep buying your content. You're creating classics. You're not creating popular stuff. You're creating classics. So when this is the kind of gift that you've been given, then think longevity, that this kind of music will be streamed 80 years from now, the same way we're still buying, music from John Lennon till today. So if you create that kind of content, your estate, your heirs, your generations can even, make money from that content, because it's the kind of content that lasts for a very long time. So what are your streams of income? You need to start with patrons, people with cultural taste, who appreciate you and are committed to supporting you until you blow. So you need to find out who are those people that are constantly supporting you, that anytime you create content, they buy. Anytime you put up a post on social media, they comment, they engage. You need to separate your core supporters from the general public. So those are the people you now focus your attention to, and identify who are the patrons among them, who are the people who, and what happens is that the power of referrals, once you find those core people, ask them to share your content with their friends, ask them to broadcast your content on their platforms, because these are people that are invested in you. They believe in you. They want to support you. So create a closed community. So that's when you start building your newsletter distribution list with those people. Create a special website page for them, so that anytime you have new stuff, they just these are the people that you send out messages to check out your stuff, because they're the people who will keep supporting you. They will keep paying. They will keep buying your stuff. So focus on your patrons. You're not trying to talk to everybody, because everybody won't understand non-populist content. So you need to find the people that like you, and then use the power of referrals to get them to bring their friends and family. Explore, there's a formal paid patron site called Patreon. It's a crowdfunding site for artists. If you can get on that platform, please do. So as you build your newsletter list, you can then direct those people to sign up on Patreon, so that they can, begin to give you monthly income, quarterly income. OnlyFans is also another platform. And then curated offline events for 20 people, 50 people, very intimate events where the people who really want to pay for your stuff, stop trying to do massive concerts or massive, until you get to the point where you have fans that run into the thousands and the millions, then you can do big events. But for now, focus on those people that are passionate about you. Do smaller things, intimate gatherings. And like I said, power of referrals. If your quality is high, if your quality is good, then by the next time they would bring their friends. You can even ask people, do you want to pay for a quarter? Do you want to pay for a year? If they can't make it, then of course they can pass on the tickets to a friend or to a family member. So those are the kinds of ideas that you should begin to think about to earn an income if you're a deep, content creator and you're non-populist. Also cultivate high net worth individuals and members of the diplomatic corps, because these are people that have cultural taste and they can afford to pay for quality. So when you create all these intimate events, invite members of the diplomatic corps. You don't need to know anybody. Write to the embassy. Make sure your invitation is qualitative. Make sure you also have a social media presence rather, so that when they go to check you out, they actually see that you're a serious person. Send complimentary tickets to embassies. But it also means that your event must be in a secure location. So sometimes you may have partnerships with associations or ministries of culture, or foreign cultural associations in your country. Ask to do a joint event such that event takes place in a secure location, and then you get members of the diplomatic corps attending as guests. So begin to think of how do you get the people that can afford you, as opposed to trying to attract the general public. Now, to expand your brand reach, make sure you record all your events so that you can subsequently distribute on social media and other online platforms. So anytime you have an intimate event, anytime you show your work or your content, record it so that it gives you a further distribution as you go along. Create a strong social media brand. You must use, and the good thing about it is that if you're an introvert, social media is one of the platforms that is good for you, in terms of you can hide behind a computer, to tweet, be on Instagram. Again, you don't need to be the one doing it. If you have a member of your team that is savvy and with social media and with technology, let them just follow you around and put out your content on social media, and then make sure you use the right hashtags. You tag the right people who have global following so that they can help you share and retweet your content. Now, for those who are prophets, prophets are those who produce, if you were in the music industry, they're the people who produce conscience music. So think John Lennon, Fela, Bob Marley. These are people that paint a picture of what society should look like. So they're always talking about the ills of society, how society can be better. These are people that talk about the future. What should society be? They speak truth to power. Now, if you're that kind of person, you're the voice of the voiceless. Therefore, you will hold tremendous mass appeal. Remember when we talked in the earlier lessons, when we talked about the diverse topics, that are available to a Christian creative. So if you're talking about politics, you're talking about social justice, these are topics that hold tremendous mass appeal. So you would definitely build a huge audience if you have this prophetic creative gift. And once you achieve that brand recognition, your key sources of revenue, of course, will be performance fees and endorsements. If you have a huge following, the brands will follow. You're the type of Christian creative that can fill venues. So consumer brands will love you, and will use you to headline events. So these are some revenue streams. Please go over this lesson again and again. Click on the links, or rather type out the links that I've given you. Do further research, and hopefully as you begin to practice some of these lessons, you would earn some revenue. There's one more concluding lesson, and I hope to see you there. Thank you.